The massive scale of the Temple Mount defined a world of absolute top-down hierarchy. This religious complex was the physical manifestation of a society where law and power were concentrated at the very top. Within this system, the elite priesthood functioned as the mandatory gatekeepers for the divine. Any interaction with God required their mediation and adhered to their strict institutional regulations. This towering institution stood in stark contrast to the state of Jesus' followers. They were a small, leaderless group, hiding in locked rooms and fearing for their lives. For these frightened laborers, challenging the combined weight of the temple guard and Roman military through conventional means was impossible. A physical rebellion against such entrenched power had no path to success. The Book of Acts introduces its mechanism of disruption not through a political treaty, but through the day of Pentecost. The text describes this event as a violent sensory overload that shattered the existing order. The accounts detailed the sound of a rushing wind and the appearance of fire, followed by a mass psychological anomaly where the followers began speaking in languages they had never learned. The immediate consequence was a total bypass of the temple's authority. By experiencing the divine directly in a common house, the followers removed the need for institutional gatekeepers. This is the practical application of unmediated mysticism. The Holy Spirit acted as a direct download of divine authority into the individual, requiring no external permission. This mass awakening transformed terrified peasants into independent vessels of power. By claiming their own direct channel to the divine, they broke the empire's monopoly on spiritual authority. To see how these mystical states functioned as survival tools, we look to the coastal city of Joppa. Here, the Apostle Peter fell into a deep trance on a rooftop. He experienced a vision of animals descending from the sky and heard a command to eat, which directly violated his religious dietary laws. This vision was designed to dismantle a rigid cultural boundary, the strict separation between Jews and the rest of the world. A single mystical experience provided the cognitive shift required to rewrite centuries of entrenched law. This allowed the movement to scale globally, moving past the constraints of its original ethnic identity. The centralized institutions responded by deploying their most effective weapon, Saul of Tarsus. Saul was a specialist tasked with identifying and violently excising these spiritual disruptors. While traveling to Damascus to continue his purge, Saul's campaign was abruptly halted by an esoteric encounter on the road. A blinding light and a voice from the sky triggered a total psychological collapse. Saul was left physically blind for 3 days as his previous ego and reality were destroyed. When his vision returned, the institution's primary enforcer had been reprogrammed into Paul, the movement's most prolific architect. This highlights a unique strategic advantage. Mystical encounters could disarm and convert an enemy who was impossible to defeat on a physical battlefield. These experiences built a decentralized network. Small cells appeared across the Mediterranean, spreading in a chaotic pattern. This opposed Rome's rigid, top-down command structure. When the empire tried suppressing the movement, the web simply flowed around their lines. The Book of Acts records numerous system glitches that frustrated institutional control, including accounts of angelic beings opening locked prison doors to release captured apostles. In another instance, an early leader named Philip was said to have instantaneously teleported from a desert road to a distant city, operating entirely outside physical constraints. These reports revealed the empire's fatal flaw. You cannot stop a movement by removing its leaders when every member claims a direct, unmediated channel to the divine. The early church functioned as an ideological virus that the Roman operating system was unable to process, predict, or destroy. The narrative eventually moves to Rome, the seat of the physical empire. The massive scale of these ruins reminds us of the architectural weight of Roman power. It is here that the Book of Acts concludes, with Paul under house arrest and physically chained to a Roman soldier. However, the text ends with a paradox. It notes that even in chains, Paul was preaching unhindered. Physical confinement proved useless against a movement whose primary domain was human consciousness. The Acts of the Apostles functions as an ancient blueprint for bypassing entrenched power structures. It leaves us with a central question. Does lasting disruption come from fighting external systems, or from the profound, uncontrollable mystical spaces within?